that's a triple play. New episodes, I couldn't wait. Yeah, open your mind at the first gate. Press play, no need to debate. AoA, check me out. Look, clocked in, you can catch the hype. Golden Dawn, how we follow the light. Anime like life, married to it, my wife.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages? Welcome back to the AoA show. I'm your host, as always, Ian, along with the boy Isaiah.
Oh, hi, yo.
And today we're hitting you with another tier list. It's been too long. I love me a good tier list.
Oh, yeah.
They are some of my favorite videos to record because they're just subjective ridiculousness, and they're just a blast to do every time. So this time we're covering Haikyuu, Season 1. For those of you who don't know, we've been really high on Haikyuu, at least Isaiah and I have. We've been reacting to it. If you haven't seen our reaction videos, highly recommend you go check them out. The link is in the description down below. It's on our AoA Reacts channel. We're definitely going to be watching the show in its entirety, so Haikyuu's here to stay. And we just finished the first season and discussed it and reviewed it and all that kind of stuff, and we're like, why not make a tier list about it? Find an excuse to do more Haikyuu stuff. So here we are. We don't have every single character, because that would just be ridiculous. We have all of the what we would deem to be standout characters, obviously from the boys from Karasuno and all that, and some of the more prominent players from the other teams. Generally speaking, if they've got some sort of backstory, flashback, you'll probably see them on here, although it's maybe not every single one. So yeah, that's what we did, just to save some time and energy here. Before we even start, we all know that basically everyone in this show is at S, so don't get offended if we put them lower. So it's all good fun.
We decided to put up a little challenge for ourselves here. In addition to our standard token rule, which is at the end of our tier listing, we each get a token that we get to use, and we get to put anybody. We either get to put somebody in a tier that we want to put them in that they're not already in, or you can use your token to debunk somebody else's token. So, like, if Ian goes first and he's like, Tanaka's got to be an S, like, no way. And, like, for some reason, I, like, get hit in the head and don't know what Haikyuu is. I'm like, no, Tanaka's got to be lower than S. I can use my token to deduct Ian's token choice. But, so, in addition to the token thing, though, because a lot of these characters are just so fucking likable, and I can't honestly see anybody going lower than A, realistically, the challenge that I want to put to ourselves is that we have to have at least one character in every tier. So every tier has to be used up. But then I was like, oh, actually, there are some characters on here who, like, you know, in comparison to characters I know we really like, are, like, kind of, like, mid. And, like, we might put them in C and D as an excuse. So I'm going to up the challenge even more because I hate us and say that we have to put one person from the Karasuno team in each tier.
Oh, God.
It's gonna suck.
God.
And future me, I know already is gonna hate current me for saying this, but I think I want to find a way to make this interesting.
That's a good rule, though.
Because otherwise, they all dead ass will go in S.
No, literally. No, that's a good way of doing it, because it's interesting. A lot of tier lists, it's like, who really deserves S? But in this tier list, it's like, who really deserves below A? You know, so it's like, that's what makes it pretty difficult here and adds a little bit of spice to it. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. Make sure you guys are liking this video if you do, subscribing to the channel if you are new here, and subscribing to AoA React so you can catch these Haikyuu live reactions. And comment your thoughts down below. What did you think of our tier list? Would you have switched anything up? Who's your favorite character in Haikyuu, at least for Season 1 or so far? The great thing about the show is that, like, the spoiler thing doesn't really matter. Like, you could be like, yeah, my character comes later, and I'll be like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, they're gonna play volleyball. Like,
or it's like,
that's it.
it's like saying their name doesn't really matter, because, like, I guess there are spoilers in the sense it's like, oh, if, like, something happens to one of these existing characters or whatever. But it's like, yeah, if you're like, oh, my favorite character is, like, so and so, he's on the X team. It's like, okay, cool.
Great. I bet he plays volleyball. Right. So let us know all those thoughts in the comments down below, and make sure you guys are checking out our Patreon as well if you check out our live reactions, because one of our tiers will have early access to our Haikyuu live reactions as well. So we're Haikyuu'd out, baby. Let's do this. All right. So who do we got?
Not the worst.
No.
Is Tobio Kageyama.
Okay. Let's just bite the bullet and get out of the way. He's on the bench.
Okay. So a little, it's like, because I'm like, okay, there's obviously there's Katasuno boys like Tanaka and Suga, who are fantastic. But it's like, especially, at the very least in this season, and I'm assuming it's going to be somewhat similar throughout the show, like, these first two actually get, like, a very specific a lot of love, like, from the show in terms of screen time and, like, their character growth and perspective and all that stuff. So I'm a little bit more akin to them. I think Kageyama specifically is tough because this season it was heavy with him, and we got a lot of character stuff.
So
with
much.
him.
I would argue he had the most growth.
Yeah, and so that's why, like, my mind shoots to S, because I'm like, he went so far, like, with his character, and I really love where his character went.
I honestly, no, all things considered, and I also want to throw out here real quick, we have you'll see the names here, the quirky little names for SA, whatever superstar. Don't pay attention too much to the actual names. Like, obviously Kageyama's a superstar, but just pay attention to S, A, B, C, D.
They're all highlighted with
just so you know, because some people get confused with that. But yeah, I genuinely do think Kageyama is no lower than A and probably S. And it's not even that Kageyama's my favorite character, although, again, I love him, just like I love all the characters in this show. But I do think the argument to be made is that I genuinely do think that Kageyama, out of everyone on this list, even, I would say, equal to, if not more so, in my personal opinion, than Hinata, gets the most growth in this season. I feel that he gets so much growth from the time that we see him to the end here.
I would agree, and I would even also add that, like, Kageyama, it's more, at least to me, than just like, oh, Kageyama used to be a jerk and now he's not. It's like he's always had this love and passion for volleyball that has made it abundantly clear that, like, that's why he's here. He's not here because he has these super genetic God-given talents and he's here to, like, stomp on everybody else, like, or brag about that. Like, he's here because he loves playing volleyball. You know what I mean? And, like, in spite of whether he's gifted or not. And I can't help but keep thinking back to, like, the scenes with, like, Shoyo, where he's using his, like, jerkish, tough love demeanor, but he is, like, helping him and he's teaching him. And he's like, look, at the end of the day, like, Kageyama does care. He just doesn't go through it the same way that, like, your Tanakas would or whoever. I'm going to say S.
I'm going to say S.
All right.
Throw him an S, Kageyama. You sip that juice box. Aggressive juice box.
A yogurt and a juice box at the same time.
Drinks it aggressively, too.
All right. The boy.
Yes.
Are they not a package deal?
I'm be real. I'm be real. Like, if Kageyama's up, my argument was that Kageyama genuinely, I think, gets the most growth. But I would think the close second, if not, this is where the argument comes, because you could argue Hinata gets more growth in this. It's like teetering this bridge. But if I'm going off of that argument, it would be kind of ridiculous for me to say Kageyama deserves S for that argument, and then Hinata doesn't. Because Hinata does get, obviously, he's the main character, a buttload of growth, and just incredibly likable. He is that protagonist vibe and that advantage to him. I could see the argument for some people out there to give him an A spot, just because he might not be the most standout in any one particular quality that some people might like, but that's where the subjectivity comes in. I like Hinata quite a bit.
I think he deserves to go up here.
All right, we'll get that out of the way. Okay.
Just put him up there with the boy.
All right, now let's get into...
Now we are on Yusuke. So Yusuke is one of two of the Neighborhood Watch Association who are way too invested in these high schoolers. And they're homie. To be honest, like, we were laughing and making jokes about, like, how they're sitting up in the stands, like, like the group of girls would be like, what's going on? And they're like, let me, like, give you the exposition. But it's like, through that, we kind of spent, like, a lot and with them. Like, the last couple episodes.
That is fair.
We were with them. They were our insight into, like, what's going on, who's moving the game, how. And, again, we made jokes about it. It's like, oh, guys, get a life. But it's like, they do... they're here arguably for the same reason everybody else is, because they do love, they clearly love the sport, and they love, watching, again, other people who are just as passionate. I'd probably put him in...
I'd put him C or D.
I was going to say C.
I'm be real, just because I might even go as far as D. Not because, again, none of these characters are bad. I'm going to stress that a million times so I don't get stoned to death by the Haikyuu fandom. But... to be fair,
we're gonna have to put a Casino Boy in D. We're gonna get stoned.
Yeah, good point. So we might as well rip the Band-Aid off here. I do genuinely think there's an argument to be made in the sense that out of the two neighborhood watch guys that we see, he actually has less of a role in the sense that the other one trains. His name evades me at the moment. Yama. He trains Yama with the float serve, and we get a little bit more backstory on him, whereas he just seems like another devotee of the team, which is amazing and great, but like we don't really get much of growth from him or flashbacks or him helping
and
necessarily for somebody else.
But as of season one,
he,
I agree with C. C sounds like a.
Oh, I was gonna say D.
All right, fuck it. Start the Band-Aid.
Plus, half his head's cut off in this picture, so he's like half the man he could be.
Yeah, he's not gonna know.
No disrespect, my man.
Oh man. All right. Next is Yamamoto, who is the we joked is the Tanaka lookalike.
They're cousins. They gotta be
on Nekoma's team.
I'm going to say for this one, I would say my mind goes to C.
Okay, that's actually I
could see C because him and Tanaka are like pretty carbon copies of each other. He just has a mohawk and is on a different team.
Yeah.
I love Tanaka, but he's not Tanaka, right?
No,
so like
100%.
That's my thing. It's like we get a little bit of, but like there's nothing.
He's like the Nekoma flavored Tanaka, you know?
Exactly, where it's like I think the other teams, the real standout ones are the ones that really can't be replicated, right? Like their names evade me. We'll get to them when we get to them, but like the star guy on the captain, I would say would be one of them, and then the Orochimaru, Kenma, yeah, Kenma kid, like those would be different scenarios, but like this kid is like a pretty cut carbon copy.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I can see that.
I'm about that. We're good. That's fair.
All right.
Next is Iwa from the Oba team. I'm gonna be honest. On the Oba team, favorite character.
Me too.
100%. Because I'm, I know it's a popular opinion. He's very well liked, but I personally I'm not crazy about Oikawa. And I just love that Iwa's constantly ready to put this nigga in his place, bro. He's like, I don't know who you think you are, but like, we're fucking here to play volleyball, all right? Get out of your fucking photo shoot. Like, this isn't, and he just always, but he's like not, like he does it because somebody like Oikawa who gets like that in his head and gets that like, like needs that, but he's never doing it to be a dick. It's always like, you know what I mean? Because he does actually need it. And he, at the end of the day, he is his homeboy. And he is like, you know what I mean? They're like on the same team.
I agree. Yeah. I'm floating around the A, B.
I was about to say A.
And I could agree with you on A. I'm not going to lie, because I do genuinely think we're in a similar boat where Oikawa, I understand the likability with Oikawa, and I do, when we get to him, I do respect him for a lot of things.
Oh, sure.
But overall, I do have to say that I think that
Iwa
is my favorite one. I'm going to say
A. I bet.
Let's do it.
We'll do it. All right, next is Yama, who we mentioned briefly. But Yama's interesting because he literally his character development. If you got like Kageyama and Hinata who like, who just get the season, you know what I mean, like to stretch out their character growth. Yama kind of like really sneaks in at the end. Like a lot of his thing up until literally the match with Oba is like. He comes off as like Suki's sidekick, right? He's Suki's friend. He's chilling here. He's like kind of here to round out the team in terms of numbers. Like you don't really know where he fits in. But there is what I like about his character development is that although it's at the end of season 1, it does get enough time. Like, he is given enough screen time to like establish said character growth. Yeah. And it isn't all technically shoehorned in at the last minute because we do get the scene where he approaches Makoto, who's the other association guy. And we see him asked to learn how to do the float serve because he wants something unique to contribute to the team. Yeah. So I do, while it's obviously not as much as somebody like Kageyama, I do like where his character goes. And it was something I remember saying at the beginning. I was like, okay, how many, and I was worried about someone like Yama specifically. I was like, okay, is he just kind of be Suki's right-hand man? Sure. Is there, and I, I was satisfied. I was satisfied with what we got of his character. I'm sure we'll get more, obviously, there's 4 seasons left. But, I think I'd go B instinctively. That's where I go.
I'm rooting for him. Like I want him to do well. I do. Like, and that's what's making me like have a bias towards maybe one of the higher ones. But I think if I have to be a little cutthroat and realistic here, I would say C.
Okay.
And the reason being is we have to put everyone from Karasuno in a different one, and I think that's a great way to fill up that spot without anyone feeling too bad. But number 2, although he does get like a decent amount of growth in that sense, I just, unfortunately, he doesn't have that major of a role on anyone else in it, right? Whereas like personalities aside, even if we don't like
Oikawa.
Oikawa, no, blonde-haired giraffe.
Oh, Suki.
Dude, I'm so sorry. I had everyone's name down the other day. Bring up a name list next time. But anyway, Suki, like, as much as... Well, Suki, actually, spoiler alert, I want to put D. But if I have to choose someone, but I would say that the flip around between him going C and D as compared to him here is that at least Suki has an actual, albeit dickhead move, but like a direct impact on some of the other players. Whereas he doesn't have
Suki contributes more to like
to their growth
games
and the games and other characters' growth, because even if he stands in the way as an obstacle, whereas like this kid kind of just tags along and this is gonna sound really mean, but if he was on the team or not, at least so far, this is season 1, he could get his moment, but I'm not gonna lie, if he was there or he wasn't, I don't think this season plays out any differently. Like none of these characters make a different choice or like react differently.
That's a good point.
So
like his moment was great, but it was very like self-contained, and it was more about like him building up the nerve to get on the court rather than like, how does he help the team? I mean, like, there was the whole thing. It's like, him coming out like sort of like, messed with the atmosphere enough for the team to get the morale up. But no, I get what you're saying, and it is valid where it's like, we have our feelings about Suki, being as we're only so far season 1, but Suki does take a more center stage role, like you said, whether he's being an antagonistic force or whether he's like just doing something to help contribute to the game, the game overall, right? Consistently or long term. Suki's actions affect more of the overarching plots and the matches, where Yama's stuff is kind of like just about Yama. So okay, will you say C?
I would say C. If I was going off like strict what my argument, I think technically it's D because I think it's for Suki, but I'm not really a fan of Suki.
You know what?
So like I think just off pure subjectivity and arbitrariness that like he would be that, but I think that's the argument to be made.
Yeah.
Between those two. There.
Yeah.
Like, do we not like Suki enough to be like, okay, he's just like that much of a dick, so he deserves to be lower?
I was going to say, like, because, okay, so how about this?
It is our tier list.
That's true. I'm like, okay, maybe we have to I don't know. All right, maybe, how about this? We put him in D and Suki in C, just because, like, sort of what you're saying, where it's like, okay, you think about these characters, but like, I remember Suki more than Yama, at least in terms of season 1. It's like, you compare it to like the neighborhood watch guy, Yusuke, or like Iwa. Iwa was an opposing player, but like Iwa had more of a presence on me in this season, equivalent to like and I'm not saying Suki goes up to A, but I'm saying like, it like just juxtaposition, right? So like Yama's actions were like very self-contained in this season.
Now, to be fair, I have one more rebuttal to my own argument because I love just flipping my own arguments on their head. There is this one. There are 2 things that I want to throw out to think about in terms of this argument here. A, it's not wrong to put someone where you want to because you might like them more or less.
Sure.
Being that it's a tier list. Yeah. So I think that is a valid argument to be like, okay, I think even though this person had maybe less of an impact on the story, I just like this person more. So like not getting too much in the mold to be like, well, I really like this guy, but he didn't have much to do with like whatever. It's like, well, you like him. So that's where he goes. Number 1. Number two, even though Suki has more of a direct impact on some of the other players on the team, like, Kageyama and things like that as an antagonistic force to get over, and he's probably going to have his moment. I would actually argue, though, he doesn't actually have a lot of personal growth within this season. And I think that
so like
Yama actually has more personal growth in the sense that he is kind of under the thumb of Suki, but wants to kind of break out and be his own thing for the team. Whereas like Suki is kind of just more like gifted in that sense. So like he has more of a presence, and then his headishness is what kind of like they have to get over, but that doesn't mean that he himself is really growing that much as a character. He's just being kind of tolerated by everyone else.
That's fair.
So there's that too. I don't know.
All right. I'm cool with leaving Yama in C for now, and we'll see once we get to Suki. We'll see how we deal with that, and you know, albeit cards fall where they may. All right. So next guy is Tetsudo, who is the captain of the Nekoma team. I liked him.
I liked him too.
As much as, let's say, like Kenma personally, but I did like him. I do like that he kind of has that personal relationship with Kenma, and that he was kind of like, you know, while Kenma is a very, you know, he's not particularly motivated, right, when it comes to the sport. It's weird. He's not like playing the sport for the sport. He's playing it for the team. Right?
Yeah.
He feels like he almost is like responsibility. He's like, you know, one of the lines I remember him saying is like, if I'm not there, the team can't win. And so he's sort of become this like focal point and you know, center brain, if you will, of this unit here. And Tetsudo, I would argue, is like one of the main reasons that that's the case, because, you know, when they're doing the match with them, we see in Kenma's flashbacks that like Tetsudo to Kenma is basically Aiwa to Oikawa. Like, you know what I mean? Tetsudo was there with Kenma every time Kenma wanted to quit, or every time he got too bored. Like, Tetsudo was there being like, nah, dude, stick with it. Like, you know, I know you don't have like the passion for it, but like, you know what, you like up here, you know what to do. You know how to play. The tactics and techniques you come up with for this team are unlike anything ever. Like, you know, and so I think that's definitely important. And like, because I think Kenma probably wouldn't even be here, you know? And, you know, he carries the captain vibe. You know what I mean? I know that's like, you know, that's that, but like Daichi, you know what I mean? Like he comes in and you're like, that's the captain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He has a presence when he walks on court with the team.
I would say for him B.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Perfect. No argument needed. I actually liked him a lot too.
Yeah, he was
and
cool.
I liked him probably equally as much as
Kenma
as well. But yeah, I think B's a good spot for him. It's right in the middle.
All right. So next one is Hayato, who was Dachi's junior high friend, who ended up going on, I don't remember the team name, but a different team than Daichi, and who we ended up facing first in the, was it the prelim, or I don't know what bracket of the tournament it was, but they were the first team that they played. And quite frankly, I'm going to be blunt, the only dude from that team I remember. So
that is fair, yeah.
He was really cool. I did actually that episode, because it sort of centers around him and Yui, who's the captain of the female Cartoon team. I actually really did like that episode, because it really delved into, like, you know, which sort of comes back, you know, full circle at the end of the season, the mindset of losing, right? Like what happens when you lose, what goes through your head, like how you rebound and recover from it, because obviously that's the most important thing. And while with Karasuno, it's different, because we know they put in, you know, asinine levels of work. With these teams, it was a different take on it, because there was a sense of guilt and almost regret, because it was like, well, you know what? Like, I don't know if I tried as hard as I could have. Like, maybe if I had just stuck it in the extra hours, maybe if I had, you know, done that extra run or whatever. And I like that, because that's, you know, it's not easy stuff to admit, especially when you lose something like this, that it's like that it could have been on you. You know, it's like, oh, maybe, you know, taking that hard, honest, introspective look at yourself. Yeah, so I really like him. He's really cool, and you know, he's got the whole connection with Daichi and stuff, and that was really cute. I would say probably C.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say D or C with him. Okay. And not that I disliked him at all, but again, I don't dislike anyone here. So I think just in terms, but so there's this dividing line, right? The argument for C is that I feel like his character inadvertently kind of puts forward one of the most important overall messages that the show is trying to convey and deliver, which is very important. But I don't feel like they needed his character per se in order to do that. I feel like they could have done that just as easily like they did with Daichi's wife. And you know what I mean? And done that. It just so happened that he was the one that was kind of fit into the, like, pushed in that mold.
Okay.
So I don't really think that makes him overall special as compared to anyone else who could have had that growth, that spike there. And beyond that, you know, like, he's just like so, you know, he's there for such a short amount of time. I do feel for him and I want him to get better, but again, out of a litany of characters that I don't dislike any of them and I want to root for all of them, like, I'm not watching the show and thinking like, God, let's go back to him and see how he's doing. You know what I mean? And some of you might be, and that's cool. But like, that's just not me.
That's
so
totally,
if I'm being brutally honest, I said D. If I'm being brutally honest, I could see C, but I could see C. But
I'll because I'll concede because I get it. I understand that, and it does make sense. It's like his character does tell a very important lesson, but it's almost like his character specifically didn't like. It's not like, oh, thank God his character was here to tell it because he needed to, you know? It's just like something else to reinforce that lesson. I agree. All right, so next we have the literal definition of a gentle giant, Asahi, who is, oh God, I just love him. I love him all so much.
He's great.
Asahi is a big one for me because I'm going to be honest, I didn't, like you said, I don't dislike anybody, and I didn't, but his character did take me a minute to get around because it took me a minute to really understand his perspective, right? I was like, because at first when we met him, I'm like, okay, dude, I get you got blocked, but like, you're kind of like a powerhouse. Like, if you just like train and like keep practicing, like, you know, you could do it. You know what I mean? Like I don't, you know, I couldn't really. It took me a while to get there, but once I got there, once I really wrapped my head around the fact that it's not even really the sense of like he feels weak now, but it's like he feels like he lost his teammates' trust, and like that's what was weighing on him. That's where that like source of anxiety comes from. And like when it's one thing when it's like, oh, I fucked up and I pay the price, but like it's a team game, right? He feels like not only did he let himself down, but he let his teammates down, which like that's what was the final nail in the coffin for him. And you know that can be a tough thing again, especially in a team sport like this. Like that can be a really heavy burden, and with somebody like Asahi who's already, you know, very prone to being cautious or not cautious rather, but like anxious and very, you know, doubtful of himself. You know, it sucks, but I love the way he overcomes it. Episode like 9 and 10, that shit was literally fire. It was just like
some of the best episodes.
The way that built up and that climax was absolutely amazing. And even when we reunite with the day tech team and he gets to finally like he gets to break through that wall and get his confidence back. It's just some of the amazing, and plus anytime, dude, that like they put in a play where Hinata goes up to hit the ball, but he's a decoy, and then fucking Asahi's in the back, he's winding up. It's like you just can't help but scream. He's just so amazing.
He delivers a lot of hype moments during it, and I do agree with you that I don't know that a lot of people would gravitate towards Asahi right off the rip, and I feel like okay, we talked about this in our review, but all of these characters within all shows, because people almost do this as well, they kind of fit into these categories, right? You have Daichi as like your Captain America, freaking Erwin Smith style leader dude. You have Hinata as your Gon Naruto, you know, Luffy type thing. Like Kageyama as your Sasuke, whatever. You get my point, right? Like there's a certain mold that a lot of these characters fit into. And Asahi is in a very interesting one because he fits into a role that isn't always put forward in shonens like that. There are some that have it. But it's the role of a coward. And I don't mean that like as an insult in the sense where it's like, oh, you're being a coward. Like the role of someone who's anxious, maybe to sugarcoat it there. That's someone who goes into this every time fearful and nervous, right? And not everyone can relate to that. But if you can relate to that, I feel like Asahi is got to be one of your favorite. It has to be one of your favorite characters because it takes so much. I know when I was younger, I definitely, and even now, like, because I care, but I definitely could relate to that on a smaller scale. I could see where it's coming from, and I could see why there's an appeal to Asahi, and it makes it all that much more encouraging when he does overcome it, because it feels like he's starting from an even lower level than anyone else, and he has to climb out of the pit before he can even climb the ladder. You know what I mean? Everybody else is starting at floor level, he's starting underground. So I feel like it makes it that much more exciting when you have those payoff moments, like in episode 9, I think it is, which is one of my favorite moments in the season, when he just spikes that ball at like, they're playing the neighborhood guys. You know what I mean? In their gym. And it was like the most intense thing ever. But when he does that, like those moments are just such huge payoffs. And he's just like a really genuine dude, obviously, like all of them are. But yeah, I could see the appeal to him and I do like him very much. I would have to say though, if I had to choose here, I would probably gravitate towards B for him, especially since we have to put all of them in a different tier here. I think he would be where my B slot goes.
So they don't all have to be in a different tier. We just need one of them in each tier.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. It still remains the same. I do genuinely think though, like being cutthroat with it, I think B is where I would put him.
I can agree.
He's not my favorite character, but he is fantastic, and you know, there's a lot to be learned from a character. I'm gonna be
1,000% honest with you. I put this kid on here to round the list out.
Yeah, because I'm like, who the hell is that, bro?
So, yeah, his name is Koji. He is one of the three amigos of Hinata's original team way back in middle school. And I literally only put them on here because, A, I was concerned that I wasn't going to have enough people on this list. And B, I was like, okay, out of like secondary characters, they do like matter in a sense because they're kind of the reason that Hinata gets to like literally start his volleyball journey at all. Like when he had nobody to train with or help him, they were the ones that volunteered to, you know what I mean, like stick with him and play with him. Which, you know, again, sounds small, and in a sense, in the grand scheme of this season, even let's just say it is small, but it does matter, right? They're the one, you know, not even specifically just them, but them and like that girls volleyball team that he like. They're the ones that gave Hinata the push, the edge, and the time that he needs so that he can get into the position where he can stand up with the rest of the Karasuno people. So I felt that I could put them on here. But that being said, like I said, you know, it was almost instinct that I was like, all right, I need somebody. So I could totally see like C or D.
Is D. Like he don't even play volleyball, bro. He was like on the basketball team or like bowling or some shit. I was like, who is that? And then you were explaining it. I was like, oh, the shirt. I remember the shirts were like that.
Yeah.
There. And it's like, I'm sure he's a great kid, but like if you're not even playing volleyball, like come on now.
We're at their school. We're doing evaluations. We're like, Koji, you are a bright kid. All right, and you just come in here every day, and you got this passion. You don't play volleyball.
It's like, how did you get in here? You realize basketball's at 6, volleyball's at 4, right? But I feel like he wouldn't
even be disappointed. He'd be like, all right, thanks.
Yeah.
Just walk out.
Listen, he made the list, okay? He made the list. And that in and of itself is something that's
100%.
noteworthy.
All right, so we have Takanobu next, who is a.k.a. Solid Snake Sergeant Soldier Military. I just killed a nigga before this match, and I'm still mad that he didn't die as quick as I wanted him to.
By the way, I have no eyebrows.
Yeah, and I don't speak. I just run. So yeah, his character is interesting because we're, you know, at the beginning we're told that like Daitek is the team that Karasuno lost to in the most recent tournament, and that the reason is because Daitek is known as the Iron Wall. Like that's their code name or their nickname. And the reason they have that nickname is because Iron Wall over here is an iron wall. He's this big, giant dude with these broad fucking shoulders. He can jump like a fucking leapfrog. And he just is tall as shit and just blocks anybody's fucking spikes or you know, hits or anything. And so I don't know. To be honest, I was pretty mixed on this character because I like him and I like the one thing that is obviously undeniable is his passion for the game, right? I think honestly, if any of these people are players and even some of them who aren't, that's very clear. Like they all love this game. I don't think he'd be there if they didn't. I do really like the moment at the end of the Daitek match too with him where him and the other guy are coming off the court, and I believe one of their other players is like, look, you guys are first years, all right? You may not realize this now, but like pretty soon, a lot of us, the third years here, are going to be gone, and you guys are going to be the ones running this team. And they're like, we are the Iron Wall because of you guys, but like it's going to take a lot of hard work to stay that way. Like, do not let this, you know, belittle your flames. Do not let this, you know what I mean, stomp out your passion. Like, stick with it, stay at it. And it's a really nice moment. I'm not really a fan of how he literally doesn't talk at all. It's just weird and off-putting to me personally. You know, it'd be nice to get some emotion from him verbally, other than like, because he's not the Hulk, at least not yet. And the Daitek match is like it's not like Oikawa, who when we get to, but it's like parlaying my feelings on Oikawa personally, Oikawa has a lot of presence in this season. Aside from the final match, right? Yeah. He's sort of like a force that's felt all throughout the season, where it's like this guy kind of starts and stops before and after the Daytech match. Yeah. But that's me personally. I think I would probably go personally B or C.
Yeah, so
C.
Fair enough. Here's my, and I was gonna say B or C, but here's my argument. I actually do like him a bit, and I feel for him. Some of these characters where it's like, I would have the feeling that he's not gonna make it like top 3 on a lot of people's lists.
Sure.
But like, so the way they portray him when we first see him, right? When he comes up and grunts and whatever, and it's like, we're gonna crush you, like 90% of these people do, and then they're like, oh, I'm actually nice. They kind of put him as this like force of nature, right? Where it's like it's almost like he's not even a human, literally, right? It's like he just kind of does what he does, and it's like, are you going to be able to get past this obstacle, this hurricane, right? This beast of a thing that's there to stand in your way, that's there to block you, guard the door, right? To whatever level you need to get to next. But the more that we play, and the more that we get the little tidbits of actual personality from him, you realize that he's human, right? At the end of the day, and he is not. He's like, of course he comes off with that demeanor, but like, it's because he cares. Like all of these people, most of these people really do. And not only that, but he cares for his other teammates, and he cares maybe cares isn't the right word, but he respects and or cares about actually the opposing team as well, and recognizes them as someone that he is excited to go forward with. And I don't know. I think it was very telling at the end when it's like he's been shown to be like this wall, right? This force of nature, this immovable object that just is there, doesn't care about anything else. But I think it was very telling at the end when there's this shot of him and he's like towering over Hinata, and he stands stand. And he goes, you know what I mean? Like that you have my absolute respect, and like it was a pleasure playing with you. You know what I mean? And it's like, he's a man of few words, like for sure.
No words.
Of like none, and it's like, that's obviously what really denotes him, because it was like, if he had talked, you'd get to see that a little bit more. It's like, you kind of have to read it through his body language and the things that he does, like in the little in-betweens there. So I could definitely see why he's not top ranked for quite a few people. It's a totally justifiable argument. I guess I just have a little bit of bias because I feel bad for the big guy, you know what I mean? Because I know a lot of people probably look at him as this menacing thing where it's like they don't want to go near him and the whole night, and he doesn't have eyebrows, you know what I mean? So some people, the poor guy, you know what I mean? Like, just don't even want to talk to him off that, but he's like genuinely, like, you could tell he's a decent dude. So like,
but you know what? He's not like an Asahi where it's like he's big and powerful, but you go up and talk to him and he's like this actually incredibly like gentle, kind soul. Like, and that's not to say that he's not nice, but I do think he's like genuinely just a little bit more cut on a harder edge. You know what I mean? Like, he probably doesn't really mind or care that like not a whole lot of people are coming up and talking to him. But unlike someone like Asahi, who probably really likes interacting with people, but is just very anxious. So I think that's what denotes. It's like that, and again, in a combination with the fact that like we never hear him speak. I never even hear him like think. Like, we don't get to like see what he's thinking in his head. Where it's like, I don't think the social aspect of this sport, which isn't the dominating force, but is a force in it, I think he doesn't really concern himself with as much. It's more about, like you said, like finding a powerful, worthy opponent or rival, and then like the respect that he clearly has for the opposing teams and people like Karasuno, despite like the match and stuff, is really great. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel it's just kind of like he's that guy, you know what I mean? Who it's like, okay, he just wants to play, and it's like,
And I'm curious to see if his arc, if they show him at all, going forward, which I'm assuming the way they set it up, because it's like, you're a first year. You know what I mean? So like, I would assume a lot of the arc is kind of opening up in that respect, because like he does rally the team, just through his body, his body language, and just the fact that he's willing to put life and limb on the line. But maybe I just got a bias. You know what I mean? Like, I just like him. You know what I mean? So I'm going to say... B.
B. Okay. I will, okay. I'll concede.
All right.
All right. Next guy on the list is Yutaro. Or, I'm sorry, not Yutaro. Akira. So Akira is he's on the Oba team. He's the guy that sort of in the vein of Yama, who like literally gets a character moment at the tail end of the season. And you find out that when he used to play in junior high with Kageyama and the rest of or most of his Oba team, he like seemed to really not give two shits, right? He was like, whatever. Like if the ball goes over, I'm not like running. I'll walk if I can get it. If I, all that stuff. And Kageyama would always get on his case because he's like, dude, you actually like have talent. Like, why are you not taking this shit seriously? And we find out that it's just not in his play style to be running around like sweating 900, beats of sweat, trying to catch and save every ball. He honestly and genuinely prefers to play smarter, not harder. Mm-hmm. And Oikawa though picks up on this and he's like, that is actually one of your greatest strengths though. You people aren't looking at you because you're the one not running around on the team. So use that. Find your moment, pick your spot, and then make your move, right? Mm-hmm. Play smarter, not harder. And so it's really cool to see, again, just on a note of Oikawa as a captain, it's cool to see him bring that out of Akira, because we know that before in junior high with Kageyama, he was very hesitant to participate even in any way. But I will concede sort of on the same boat that of where our thing was with Yama, that it's like, it happens at the tail end of the season. It's pretty like self-contained. It doesn't really get. I would even argue, or I would even say that Yama gets more of a presence than Akira. So I'm willing to go C.
Yeah, I would say C or D for him, just because I'm not going to lie. I had no clue who this guy was until literally like that episode where it's like all of a sudden he's out of the corner and then they have his flashback for like a second. I'm like, who the f- is that? You know what I mean? Like, and to be honest, that's like literally all he gets.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's like, I don't
say?
know. D. I'm saying D for him.
All right, that's fair. All right. The boy.
Yeah. Now we're getting into some juicy stuff here. We're getting into
the true gangster thug. I would take a bullet for any of my boys. Tanaka. Right off the bat, I'm gonna just go with A. I feel like Tanaka. Like Tanaka is very important, and that's not to be understated with any of the other players of Karasuno, obviously, but like Tanaka is important because of the specific role he plays, and not just as a like literally on the team, but as a person in the club. Mm-hmm. Tanaka is the upperclassman who's the only one that as a first year you'd feel comfortable approaching and like talking to and having a conversation with and getting tips from, which is incredibly important because I feel like in this atmosphere, even from what I remember from school, like that was always one of the most intimidating parts of starting a club. Is like finding your clique, finding your group of people to talk to, the people that could help you out. Tanaka's the guy who's coming up to you, right, mm-hmm. and offering you that. He's incredibly friendly, he's incredibly likable, and he's incredibly like ride or die loyal. And that sounds like no duh, but I think it's incredibly important, and it really does speak miles not only to again the role he plays in the season, but as a character, as a person. Tanaka is I think two most evident parts. One is the whole at the very beginning when Shoto and Kageyama are trying to get into the club, and he's the guy who's like man, we practice like at 5 a.m. like the door might be on, helping them out in that way, and just being an all around good homie. And then at the very end of the season in the match with Oba, when Oikawa sees how not great he is at receiving and decides to like target him specifically at first and try to break him down, we see that loyalty, for a second does lead him to be like, oh fuck, I don't want to let these people down, right? Like I don't want to be the reason we lose this game because like I wasn't strong enough. But again, because of Tanaka's, loud ride or die personality, he ends up being able to turn that around as a plus and actually let that motivate him to like get more fired up instead of getting depressed or like down on himself or in his head. That kind of person, like I said, I think that connects to the same kind of person who's willing to be the one to approach you when you're new. Like Tanaka he does not let like I almost want to be like the societal norms of situations like get in his way. Tanaka has like an objective, he has a mindset, he has a belief. And whatever that is in, or whoever that's in, like that's it. He's here for that, and like he will not stop until that is achieved. And it's incredibly, incredibly admirable.
No, I mean, well said. I can't really do much more justice than you've done already. Tanaka is one of my favorite characters in this show, top 3.
He's just funny as fuck.
He's just amazing. I think he just adds so much value, not even to the team, but to the show, just in general. My instinct is A or S, with a heavy lean on the bias side towards S. But I genuinely do think the more you were talking about it, I just feel how important this character is as glue that holds this team together, and also just like a sponge, kind of like pulling everyone like with this positive gravitational pull towards that. Like when he's there at first with the approachability, and then he's there putting in hours that he doesn't need to put in with these people. Like, he's incredibly selfless at the end of the day, and he comes off as like loud and like crazy and stuff like that. But like you said, he is willing to take a bullet for anyone on this team. He's always putting other people first, and I think that, like, literally, and I think that's so admirable with a character like this. And I also just love this archetypal character where the passion is so high, and that when you back them further into a corner, or when the stakes get higher, is when he really comes alive. I love that style of character. He's an all-around good player on the team as well. He puts in a lot of work there, and it's like he never really lets a situation intentionally go south, right? He's like never giving in to that sort of thing. And if he knows that he's about to give in, he knows that he can't give in for those around him. He has to burden that strength for the turmoil for the people around him. My bias is going to say S. There. That's my bias. I could see the argument for A, being that he's not our protagonist. All right.
But he's one of my favorites. Right now we have one Karasuno in C, B, and S. So we need one in A and one in D before we're done. So just keep that in mind. Who we have? Okay. All right. Because I'm just like, no, I catch myself being like, trying to find reasons to not put him in S, but I'm like, no, but Tanaka is so cool.
I was
but
doing
then
the
I'm
same
like,
thing.
I don't know. All right, whatever. Moving on. Turnip Head. See, I have his name right here, but I'm gonna be honest. Turnip Head is just more funny, and like that's what Hinata calls him. So if it's good enough for Hinata, it's good enough for me. I'm gonna say C. Just plain and simple. I'm
gonna say C as well.
Yeah,
where he has his moments.
He's really. It's good that he's on the team with again, like, he plays an Aiwa-esque role, in my opinion, not as well as Aiwa, but to like sort of really be like, hey, Aiwa, knock the fuck off. Yeah. And he's kind of a no nonsense player, but he's a really good all around player.
Sure.
And he's he gets the job done. But he's head shaped like a turnip.
Yep.
So I don't like that. All right. Next, we have Yui, who is the female captain of the girls' Karasuno team.
She's great.
She's absolutely amazing. Again, like we're saying, in lieu of this guy, I love that episode that centered around his team and her team, and I love that lesson. And I do think that lesson work like sort of. So what we were saying as the detractor for him, I actually think works better for Yui, because I think the way that they integrate that into like her character and her relationship with Daichi, her husband, like just works really well, right? Like, because it wasn't like that was the thing with them where it's like you come to Daichi and Daichi's not going to be the guy who's like, well, I don't know, like, back's against the wall. Like, this is he's like, no, you can do it, because if you don't say you can do it, like, how are you ever going to get it done? Like, you before anybody have to believe 100% that you can get this done. And like seeing her come to terms with, or come around to that mindset and like really apply it even after they lose, which like, again, in something like this, in like a sport, is such a big deal, right? It's so crushing to take a loss and to have that defeat. But the way that she comes around for it, and just particularly, I always admire these characters who, when they have that moment where she loses, she's like comforting the whole team, and then she's like, oh guys, I'll be right back, and like make sure that she's out of the team's way and vision before she breaks down, because she, sort of what I imagine the same kind of a weight that Daichi carries as the captain, where it's like, I have to be the backbone here. I have to hold my composure, and I have to be, a strong rock for these other people to cry, so I can't let them see me break down. You know what I mean? And it's like that level of responsibility and owning up to that. I absolutely love it.
She's like, for me, I think she might be best girl so far. Like season 1. I don't know. We haven't met all the ladies yet. There's like 2. You know what I mean? So it's like it's like 50-50. But I mean, like she's pretty sweet.
No, she's definitely cool.
I would say for her, probably my instinct is B. I could see an argument.
Ian's like, I think she's best girl B.
That's the best thing with me. People get so mad at me because I'll be like, I really love this character. I'm fine with A. And they'll be like, why are you not like dropping everything and ready to fight for this character to be? And I'm like, I'm very pragmatic when it comes to these characters. Like, I understand like that just because I really like them doesn't necessarily mean that they're S automatically. Like I'm very cutthroat with that. I could see B or A.
B or A?
A would be me being nice.
I could.
I'm not gonna lie, like because she doesn't. To be fair,
nice.
she doesn't have a lot of scenes beyond that. Like that's her
no.
moment,
That's fair.
know?
I do think that moment is incredibly great. But I do think it gets her up to B. That's a fair play. All right, Suki. We called you in the office today because we need to talk. You're kind of being a dick to everybody, and I don't know. The morale just drags down a little bit when you speak. But all right, so here's my thing. We were talking about this a little bit when we brought up Yama, because they're tight. Suki is weird to me because as much as he rubbed me the wrong way, like. Okay, the two, like we said, I like all these characters, and even the ones that I complain about, I do still overall like. And if I had to pick like two characters that really like put a thorn in my side, it would be Suki and Oikawa. And I would say between those two, Oikawa is the one who like really fucking gets under my skin. You know what I mean? Like Suki is annoying and he's kind of a dick a lot of times, but like I don't want to say I get it because I don't like really, we haven't gotten his backstory. I don't really know where his head's at, but I know people I've met people and I've known people like Suki, and I understand like what he's supposed to be, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? I understand like where I understand like where his mind and his headspace is at. I just obviously like I don't personally like or like think it should be there. He's a very like loner, by the book, like don't do anything too drastic and stupid, like being dramatic is overrated kind of guy. He's very pragmatic, very by the book, very just like let's get it done. Stop putting in all these extra stars and stripes into this shit, like it doesn't need it. Which, like I said, personally, especially in something like this, I think that personality, ironically, is a little overrated, and it's like, dude, everybody else is putting in their literal blood, sweat, and tears. Like, get on the court or don't. But I don't know.
I don't like him. I'm being real. I don't like him. I don't. I'm 100% D on this one, and my argument, I don't like him. I really don't. Like, if there's one character, literally, I think he's the only character in this show so far that I'm like, I actually don't like this character. And again, I know we're gonna get the flood of comments being like, just wait, he's gonna have his moment. And I don't doubt he's going to. I'm sure he's going to come around at some point, or maybe he does a little bit, but we understand that he has to be that kind of guy. So it's going to be like this, like, this rough sandpaper kind of exterior here. So like, I get it, but like, we're not there yet. This is season 1. This is a season 1 tier list, and he has been nothing but an asshole this entire time. And I swear to God, dude. And like, literally in the last episode, it really solidified it for me because he has his small moment, if you want to call it that, with Kageyama in the last game where he's like, oh, I do things my way or whatever and blah, blah, blah. But to be fair, that wasn't really a growth moment for him because he kind of acts like a childish dick during that thing. It's really Suga has to be like, okay, guys, we're going to do that. And it's Kageyama, I would argue, really is the growth moment there really over him. He just kind of doesn't, Kageyama doesn't explode.
He doesn't have to like come down to, a neutral level to meet them.
Yeah.
He's kind of like, this is the way I do things, Kageyama.
And Kageyama just
like,
kind of has to. Yeah, exactly. So that would be arguably in season 1 his bigger moment, which I think kind of falls flat anyway. And then the real thing, the real one that really just pissed me off in the final episode is when, what is it? Yama comes up to him and he's like, oh, hey, what's up, Suki, in class? And he goes, shut up, Yama. And I'm like, yo, fuck you, dude. If I was in school, I would have punched that dude straight in his fucking face. Like, fuck off. Like, Yama's out here, like, working with the dude from the neighborhood who works at the 7-Eleven to work on his fucking float serve because he hasn't been able to play 10 minutes of a game. You're just fucking 7 foot tall, so you automatically get to be put in there. You know what I mean? Even though you're an a-hole. Like, the guy's putting in effort. He's clearly a little not confident. You know what I mean? Like, he'd be bullied or whatever. And you're no fucking help. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's just like gravitating. Like, you're supposed to be his friend, and you're just a fucking dickhead to him. You know what I mean? Like, I hate it when people do that. Sorry, I got a thing for the little guy, and it's just like, that bothers me with his personality. It's just like, to me, it's his character.
Look, that's
like, his
totally
character
fine.
is just annoying to me.
I totally get it. I don't feel that strongly about him, although I do agree, like, with, as of right now, at the end of season 1, not crazy about his character at all. Like I said, I think it's like, he's like, I'm the cool loner. And it's like, nigga, shut up. Like, get in here or leave.
Yeah.
I'm going to put him in D, but for me, it's really just because we need one of these Karasuno dudes to D.
That's fair.
Of all of them, it's the only one I could honestly live with myself if I end up putting in D.
No, that's really fair. Yeah, I feel like, I'll get to it with Oikawa too, because I know you were saying that there was like a bounce between them, and Oikawa would probably rub you a little bit more the wrong way. And like, I would probably think the reverse for that reason. And I think one of the other things too is like, we haven't gotten that thing where it's like, we've gotten the moments we're going to get to with Oikawa where it's like, we've gotten the flashback moments of like the overwhelming amount of work that's been put in and things like that, where it's like,
no, for sure,
we kind of haven't gotten that. Like with, Suki, it's all about other characters overcoming, like having to wrangle with his annoying attitude. What it is like having to deal with it, and like, how are you going to deal with it as an individual? And there really hasn't been anything for him yet individually where it's like, oh, okay, this is a growing moment for me to get over my like bullheadedness when it comes to that, or my childish demeanor, or putting people down or whatever, or whatever. And it's like, we just haven't got it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to go off. I don't like him.
He's on the list.
I want him an E. Where's the F tier? Oh man, watch him be like the best character in like season 2 or some shit like that. But whatever.
All right, moving on. We have. I'm gonna be honest. My bias wants to straight put him in S.
Really?
I fucking love Suga, dude.
Wow.
There is something about this character where it's like, I always, like how you were saying, like Tanaka, like that character archetype you gravitate towards. I always gravitate towards these empathetic characters who, like, again, like, and because of the position he's in, where he's the setter, but he's the third year, and Kageyama's coming in here, and he's got all this, like, sweet, natural, God-given talent or whatever, and Suga has to try and compete with that, and it's like, but he's like, he's in a position, even just being a third year, right, where he could totally like hold that over Kageyama and be like, look, just because you're like the new hotshot, don't think you. But it's like, he is the literal definition, almost I would even say, like, kind of to a fault, of being incredibly like humble about it. And it's like, look, Kageyama, if you are the best setter for this match or this, like, whatever, like, you're going in that spot. I'm not here to, like, you know what I mean? If anything, like, do you want help? I can give you tips. You know what I mean? Like, but that for a second does not mean that he has any less passion for the game, that he cares less about these players, or that he doesn't want to play. And I think that's important, because it's something that's very heavily stressed throughout the season, that of Suga's will to fight does not burn out. Just because he's on the bench, just because he only gets maybe swapped in or whatever, he is, similar to an Oikawa beat. He is up in the middle of the night, drawing out strategies and tactics for the team to use. Even when he's not playing, he's like helping this team win. Even like, that's just on the technical, the strategic side of things, which is obviously very important. But I 100% believe Karasuno would have lost this match against Oikawa in set 2 if Suga had not come out, like when Kageyama was getting rattled, because not only did he obviously help Kageyama regroup and really emphasize to him that it's like, look, you got to start using all these players, not just Hinata, but the whole team. The show does a great job of being like, look, there's a lot of X and Y and Z out there variables that can affect a match and who wins, and they're not all cut and dry about like rules and regulations. Some of them are about like the momentum of who's getting points. Some of them are about the morale of the players. And Suga, being this incredible empathetic character, understands each and every one of these people, like down to like their souls. He knows who they are. He knows what makes them upset, but more importantly, knows how to use that to get them back on track and readjust the mood manually when we need it, so that we don't fall, into this, like, so everybody doesn't start thinking like Asahi and we're all down on our luck, and then, we're done before we even start playing the game. And I think that kind of character, like I said, that emotional, empathetic side, combined with the level of passion and tactician that he brings to this game, like, he's not somebody who's God-given talents like Kageyama, but he does not work like a centimeter less than Kageyama does. And even doing that, though, like, because this other scene that's come to my mind is the scene with Coach Yukai, when he's like, look, I have all these he's like, I know what I'm doing here as a setter, but like, and I come in, show up, lace up with all these guys. I want to fight just as hard as everybody else here, but like, do not for a second, like telling this to his coach, do not for a second take the fact that I am a third year into consideration. Like, do not show me any favors here.
Yeah.
You pick the best player for this match and nothing. And like, I think that kind of character is irreplaceable. Like, you need that. This team needs that kind of character, and Suga, they need Suga. He's irreplaceable and incredibly, incredibly inspiring.
That was a very compelling argument. I do have a problem though. And that problem is that we only have Suga, Nishinoya, and Daichi left in terms of who we have to put for where. And someone has to go in A. Now, the issue is, I already know that Nishinoya is your favorite, so clearly he's going to go S, right? So we know that's out of the question. So then it comes down to Daichi and Suga. And I do personally, for as much as I do like Suga, I do genuinely believe that Daichi is... I like Daichi more. You know what I mean? If I'm being 100%, and I have arguments for that, obviously, as like my reasonings for it. So if like I had to go like, gun to my head on which one is like, which one goes A rather than S, it would be him. Just because of the rules that have been set up here. Mm-hmm. Now, if this was not the rules, I'd be like, okay, S, where it is. I do think it's a compelling argument, and I do think that he is irreplaceable in certain ways, because like Suga, there is no one like Suga. But and one of the things that really what really makes this hard for me is the final episode when he chooses, along with the third years, to stay back. Mm-hmm. And now you could argue I could argue that all the third years really, along with Suga. But I think what really makes it interesting in Suga's case is the fact that Suga is choosing to stay back, even though he knows that there is a very large chance that he's not playing many games, which makes it all that much more of a sacrifice, because he's literally staying back to Nick's studies, or whatever, to get less time to play this game, but not even to play it. You know what I mean? To literally
like
just
be there for the team,
which is very admirable, like incredibly admirable. So I know I keep on making a case for S here. I guess my only, it's literally because of this ruling, because he'd be S besides that. But I think bringing Daichi into it, because I know he's way down the list, but I have to bring it in to make this argument make sense here. Is the only thing is that I genuinely do think that I think Suga has an empathy, and he's an empath, and that it's very hard to have people like they're like unicorns, people like that, and it's very important what he does for the team. But I also would make that argument for Daichi just in a different respect, in the sense that I believe that he as a captain is pretty irreplaceable, in the sense that basically before Coach came along, Ukai, right? Mm-hmm. Coach Ukai, Daichi was like kind of the captain, in the sense that he is the one that was putting all the people, or coach. I'm sorry. Yeah. He was basically the coach, right? And almost to an extent still almost splits that role for me, where it's like, if he literally to me is irreplaceable, in the sense that he understands everyone's strengths. He understands where they need to be. He understands what they need to do in that moment, kind of like Suga does, but then also provides the role during the game consistently as well. I'm not gonna lie, I'm talking in circles, because they're both basically on the same thing.
All right,
if I'm being real, I'm just gonna happen.
I'm gonna put him in A, but literally only because of the rule that I made. I guess, like I said, future me now hates past me. I apparently just love torturing myself. So yeah, that's cool. All right, next is Toro Oikawa. Not gonna lie, straight C, and literally the only thing that keeps this nigga out of D for me is the fact that, like, okay, you put in work, I see what you're doing, but that's it. Other than that, I actually hate this character, and I literally hate the fact that, like, despite all the people around him that are clearly trying just as hard to fight and play, he feels the need to put on this, like, air of superiority and this, like, weird fucking complex that he's got, where it's like, dude, the people around you are trying to play, and why like it's literally kind of the Sugi thing, where it's like, why would you choose to be a dick about it, where it's like in that
no, I could see C. I could see the argument for B, but I'm, like I said, I'm not married to this character either, so I am not gonna, fight you come hell or high water on that. So I could definitely see C. And I think what definitely bumps him up for me, like you said, and my biggest thing is that he is one of these characters that has this, this exterior of being kind of cocky, conceited, the whole nine. He's going to do the shit talking maneuver, which is definitely annoying. But the guy really genuinely puts in an immense amount of work, which to me is respectable just on a surface level, that he wants this. Take him versus a Kenma, right? Like Kenma has way more likable qualities on the surface
100%.
For sure. Right. And at the end of the day, it's admirable that he doesn't really care, but he plays to support his team. But for me, at the end of the day, it's like, if you're going to be elevated for me, at least to the upper, you got to want it. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you got to really, really want to win this, because I feel like it makes the stakes that much more important. And it's that much more that I could throw myself behind this, that I want them to beat you, or I want you to beat them, if that makes sense. Whereas Kenma, it's oh, okay. Just to use him as a comparison, he's right next to him. Okay, this is if you win or lose, it's sure, the stakes are there, but you just kind of had a mediocre time at it anyway. You know what I mean? That was it. You can put him in C, but I think that, to be fair, just to give him his due, because I feel like Oikawa is definitely a favorite of some people out there. So just to give the proper explanation, I do feel like that is something to be respected and said, where it's you might disdain Oikawa for his personality, but when we're playing against him, it's this is a game that really matters, because at the end of the day, he's not just oh, it doesn't matter if I win or lose. And it's all right, then what's the point? You know what I mean? He really puts that in.
Yeah. I bump up to see, because I know he works hard for it and he wants it.
And I would put him higher if it wasn't for the fact that I still don't trust that he's fully grown past where he needs to yet. Because I think he has this moment where it seems that he grows. Because his boy kind of gives him the sauce, and he's resentful of Kageyama because Kageyama is so naturally gifted, and he feels like he has to work that much harder. And then when he goes to snap at Kageyama, which is a big no-no, because you should be trying to bring him up with you, when he kind of gets a good talking to here and kind of and gets headbutted for saying I, you think that he grows in that moment, but
he doesn't.
But that's the thing. I'm kind of still torn on if he actually did, because you could tell through his body language and the way he talks with people, it almost seems like he's not utilizing them to bring them up, but almost that he's using them as pawns.
Yeah, here's the thing.
And his teammate, the one line that sticks out to me was when he's saying, haha, when he brings the team together, but then the one teammate is yeah, but you just seem like you use us. You know what I mean? That you don't really care.
Here's the thing. He doesn't, he puts in a lot of work, and he clearly cares about the game. But I actually think that he adopts a similar mindset to where Kageyama started, where it's okay, as long as I'm steering the ship, we can all win, and we all will win, but you will have to do what I say to get that. And it's that's not it, my guy. That's not where we're supposed to be at. And it's a lot of, like you said, I'm going to utilize each of these players instead of I'm sitting here on the throne and all these players under me are my right hand and left hand, soldiers.
Yeah.
Where it's no, dude, everybody has to be here.
Yeah.
Equal playing field. There is no king. That's what I love about the whole metaphor, is the idea behind it is that it shouldn't exist. You can't be the king of the court.
Sure.
Because that already identifies that you are above people, which you're not. There's this air of superiority and this air of I know what I'm doing more than everybody else on this team. That's why I have to run this ship. That and sure, you could argue oh, he's the captain, but Daichi doesn't do that shit. Daichi, the captain needs to understand who and when needs to be up front and at the correct time, right? Daichi does not always. Daichi's fucking literally in the back, bro. For the you know what I mean? It's not about you steering the ship. It's about you keeping it from crashing, right? That's the difference. And he is always done and seems to be still doing the former as opposed to the latter.
Yeah.
And I just hate his fucking face.
No, yeah. The only other thing too is that I would argue that he is the literal antagonist of the season, whereas he is the end goal. You know what I mean? Beating him is the thing.
Oh,
for sure. He is the final boss,
the villain in a sense.
Yeah, so he's supposed to have that, and then he has this charisma where it's whatever. But yeah, I think C is where I would end up.
How many people like him that aren't just fangirls and want his dick? You know what I mean? I wonder how many people actually.
I don't know.
Like him.
I think he has to relate this to Tower God, because we have a lot of Tower God fans. I actually think he has a similar vibe to someone like White from Tower of God, where White is actually a dirtbag, but people are just so attracted to his like charisma and his looks and like, oh, but he's like kind of what he is.
You know what it is? I would disagree on one front, and it's again something I don't like about this character. He does this like two-faced, dishonest shit when he talks to people, where he's like, "Oh, don't worry, try your best" or whatever, and is like always hitting you with these like backhanded compliments, where it's like White doesn't lie to anybody about like what he thinks or what he wants, and there's an honesty to White's villainous that I actually would argue, in terms of charisma, puts him above somebody like this who like doesn't just tell people, like he arguably doesn't talk to people like one-to-one. You know what I mean? Like what he's feeling, he says. You know what I mean? It's always like, what I'm feeling, how do I twist that to manipulate this person into what I want? That, you know what I mean? Like there's always this two-faced game with him that I'm like just not about.
I guess, but I feel like although like I don't. Never mind. We're gonna go down a rabbit hole. I think they're like almost the same. Like
okay.
In that regard, like this is volleyball compared to Tower of God. So it's like obviously I can't draw exact parallels.
Like
you know what
what
I mean?
they do.
But that was just one example off the top of my head of like a villain who, for all intents and purposes, should really not be glorified for like the way that they go about their day to day, but get glorified, and you know that it's definitely because of their good looks and their charisma. And I feel like, you know, although him and White aren't the same for the reasons that you laid out, I feel like it's a similar case. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like there. Anyway,
All right.
What are your thoughts on Oikawa?
Why do you want to sleep with? I mean, why do you like him?
I love when they do it. Every time he goes for his serve.
He's got some brainwashed fans for sure. All right, next on the list from the Nekoma team, the star setter of that team is Kenma. I like Kenma. Kenma is interesting to me because Kenma, like you said, this show and a lot of what stands out to me about any of these players, like you said, is their passion. It's their desire. It's this like how much, like you may be good, you may have God-given talents, you may just fucking show up here at the crack ass at dawn every day and work to get where you are. But regardless, I know you want it. I know you want to be here. I know you want to be running these laps, doing these drills, hitting these volleys. I actually like the fact that Kenma is outside of that reign because everybody else is already here. Like a lot of basically most of the Kadoshino team, and I would actually argue anybody on this list here who's a player, I would argue to some degree, obviously some are, I think, are closer to the center than others, are already in this circle of like, I want to be here. I'm here because I want to do this. And I like the fact that, we get that shaken up a little bit. I like the fact that there is a character here who is here out of this almost sense of duty to his companions. And he's like, to be honest, like volleyball, I don't know, it's cool, but like, I'm not really, I'm not here because I because I have a passion for it. Like I'd be playing this by myself. I do think ultimately his arc will be like he'll end up being influenced by people like Hinata and he will find a passion and a drive for it. But I do like, I don't think it'll ever go to the extent, let's say, that Hinata is. And that's okay. Because like I said, one of the things that does draw me to his character, I kind of like this like passive, but he's like crazy good with understanding the game from a technical element and, knows how to put together these pieces and like, if we do this, like, you know what I mean? Like he's big 5D chess braining the game here. I don't know. I think honestly, just off that, I would put him in A or B. I could see A or B.
I was thinking something similar with a little bit of a lean towards B, but that's just because we have some great characters coming up. I do really love the way he's so easily able to adapt to certain things, and like watching him play is a treat. That's very cool. I do like that. And although the personality, the fact that he plays in spite of his personality rather is admirable. That's really cool. I guess for me personally, while I think that's cool, I don't really gravitate towards that character too much because I don't really find too much inspiration in that per se. Even though it's inspiring, it's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
So he doesn't really rank higher than someone like Asahi. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's fair. We can shoot the boy in B. That's fair. That's fine.
Get in B.
Okay. Next up on the list is the
Takeda
teacher. Yeah, teacher Takeda. This dude, he's a homie. I'm not gonna lie. I'm also not gonna lie. not as much a homie as some of the other people on this list, just because of overall presence. Like, if we're talking about the teachers and the instructors, like you break it down between Takeda, Kiyoko, and Ukai, like in my mind, Ukai for the win, but it's like, it's almost unfair because of their literal positions. Like Ukai is the coach. He's literally in charge of like wrangling this fucking team up and like keeping them in a pristine condition.
Yeah.
Where it's like Kiyoko is the management. She's literally in charge of like the technical sides of what this team needs to succeed.
Sure.
Equipment and all that stuff. And then he's kind of like the in-between between the club and the school. So it's like, he's in this weird position where it's like, he's never going to stand out, I guess, per se. But again, his job and position is no more less important, because if we didn't have him, we couldn't get into the tournaments to begin with.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I will give him his his ticket in the game here. Ukai wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him, because he dragged Ukai. He was the one who day in and day out was going to this dude's shop and was like, "Yo, you got to coach it. I promise you. Just get in the gym. You get in the gym. You see these kids play, and you will want to coach them."
Yeah.
And he was right. So then it's very clear. Even that, and plus like the speeches he gives. I'll point to the very first speech he gives to the team when they come together, and just the moment that he has with Kageyama and Hinata when they lose and they're outside.
Yeah.
Like, again, he clearly cares about this sport and he cares about these kids and this team, and he wants them to do nothing but succeed. And, again, like that conversation he has with the two of them, he's not just like a pushover in the sense where it's like, oh, I'll just tell you what you like. He's willing to give people the tough talk, because he even does the same thing with the third years, where he's like, look, I know you guys love this sport. I love this sport. I love this team too. But like, I'm also concerned about you guys. I just want to make sure you guys are doing the best thing for yourselves and your futures in terms of your academics and stuff, like, which is awkward, I would imagine, and kind of hard position to be in considering what they had all just gone through. But it's like, again, at the end of the day, he has to play that in between, and I do think he does play pretty well. I would say, yeah. No, that's what I was gonna say.
It was just funny. It was like going through this whole litany and said B. Okay.
Yeah, we do that all the time. I'm like, let me give you my reason.
No, I think it was good. I do like him a lot, and I think he almost serves as like the HR department / like guidance counselor.
Pretty much, yeah,
to some of the kids, like that adult perspective, but not necessarily from like, oh, this is strictly a volleyball thing, but like here, this is a life thing, and he's really good. A really good example of a character who shows that it didn't need to be volleyball in this show for this show to have been good. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Anyway,
that's 100%. I'm gonna be honest. Kiyoko kind of has to go into like, I would say B or C. I'd probably go. Yeah, I don't know.
I could say B.
Yeah, I could do, just because it's like, dude, she gets so little presence in terms of like equated to Takeda here, where it's like she's just one of the people in the background a lot of the times, and she doesn't get like a whole lot of like screen time to actually like.
She suffers from the fact that her character inherently is supposed to be a little anxious and shy, which is like, oh, that's very cute, but unfortunately in a show that like has us gravitate towards the character's motivations and stuff like that, when we don't get a lot of hers, we have to kind of
that's
be
the
left
other
to
thing
guess what they are
through
her actions, which she definitely shows that she's there for the team. She's one of the third years that stays back too. With, to be fair with Suga too, she's never playing. You know what I mean? So like it's not even a thing. Like she's staying stats.
That's what I mean. And there's definitely admiration to be given to her, of course, but it's like, it's like we don't even know a lot about her character. You know what I mean? Like Suga, we know why he's here. We know what he's been thinking. We know where the track he's on is at. And I'm positive we will get that going forward. But as of season 1, there's not a whole lot of focus on who she is as a character and a person.
Yeah. Now this is a waifu tier list. It might be a little bit different. So
to the top. But yeah, that's
B, I agree
that's
there.
a different game. All right, Makoto.
C.
I'm gonna be on, yeah.
I say it because I think he literally is like Yama, but like older. Yeah, that's really
his whole
it.
moment with Yama is exactly what keeps him out of D. I completely agree. All right, S here. Let's just do that. Next is Ukai.
I'm gravitating towards A. Yeah. And
Solid.
the reason being is because he kind of serves, I actually think him and Takeda have like, because you could argue Takeda is the reason that he came along and stuff like that. But it's hard to compare when you're like, oh, they're willing to give up so much for these kids and the team, because honestly, it's like almost wrong to make it a competition at that point, because like they both give up equal amount of things just in different ways.
But you know what it is? Sorry, not to, but like Ukai, Takeda and Ukai, they have both are giving up a lot to be a part of this team, but like Takeda was here before Ukai, but like we needed a coach. Takeda couldn't fill that coach role.
Yeah.
Ukai can be the coach. He can be the guy who's yelling at these kids, giving them the tough calls, running out the play. Like that position, you need a specific kind of person for it.
Not to mention that, as far as we know, he's still not getting paid for coaching.
Oh yeah,
which means that he's working off a convenience store salary, whereas Teach over here is a teacher, so at least gets a teacher's salary. So like that's a pretty big deal, to take
100%. Now not to say that this dude's probably making hella bucks, but he's getting paid by the school to be at the school, where this dude is just showing up after work. Yeah, no, 100%. Daichi,
I'm gonna say A, just because you also put Suga in A, and I put Tanaka in S, and so but I do think he's irreplaceable, like with the Suga thing there. I think that he does a fantastic job at being a leader. You know what I mean? Like doing what it takes to rally these people behind him and playing the role of a coach when they didn't have one for a long while. He has a way of bringing out the best latent ability that these people have to offer, and not only just on the court, but just in life as well. He's just like, again, you take him in any position, that volleyball or otherwise, that's just his passion. Sure. He's just a good leader and a good person, a man of character. You know what I mean? When it comes across, and I could go on because I really do love this character, but you know, that's really all that needs to be said for me. I think he's definitely, I think he's A. I could see, S is a bias, but I could see A, whatever. But
I definitely agree.
Yeah. And this kid's D because he's, I don't even know why you put these people.
I told you, I thought I just needed to round out the list.
Oh my God, bro.
Okay. Right. So this is the list.
Yes, sir.
You do have a token if you'd like to use it.
Oh man, I'm actually pretty good with where we are. Not to be, yeah, if I could just move Suki like one lower than D, right?
Make a whole nother tier real quick.
No. I think this is pretty good, especially following the rule that we had to follow. I really don't see. There was no one that I was like, you made an argument, and I was like, I totally don't agree, but I'll just concede this. Like, I'm pretty on board with like everything that we said. So I don't know. You got one?
I mean, okay. The only one that I could honestly see myself doing, is using it to move. I fucked myself up because I've been deleting the names as we've been going through them. And I deleted his name, but the guy from Date Tech, because I kind of genuinely think he should be in C, but I also
go ahead, move him to C.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to use the token, that's fine. Fair enough. I just have a little bit of bias towards them.
I get it.
And plus, it rounds out the list here. So,
nice.
Yeah. Nice, got a nice little thing going on.
Symmetry, my guys.
There we
Symmetry. Go. All right.
So that's it.
This
is our list.
Haikyuu, season 1 character list.
It's been a wild ride. It's been so much fun. So much amazing positivity that has come from this. Fan base.
You know what's funny?
Show.
Like, between this and the review and like the show, I feel like we've been talking about these characters so much, but I could like do this again. I just love talking about these characters because they're so
100%
all just bundles of inspiration and positivity.
I can't wait to see other characters in subsequent seasons too, because a lot of people in our comments would tell us like, oh, you didn't even meet X person. That person's my favorite character. Yeah. Like, I'm super excited. Or we didn't even put the guy here who's like the Giga boss who beats Oikawa and is like a trained Marine with 5 kids. And who
makes this dude look like a fucking kid.
And trades stocks and works on Wall Street and then plays volleyball like just as a spare hobby at high school, crushes kids like that dude. So like, I'm curious to see all these people really get fleshed out here, and then we're gonna move to probably nationals eventually. So we're gonna see all these different teams, and it's gonna be really cool, really wild ride. I cannot wait for it. Folks, if you enjoyed this tier list, make sure you guys are dropping a like on this video, subscribing to the channel. If you are new here, commenting your thoughts down below. What did you think of our final tier list here? Would you have changed anything? Do you have an argument for anyone? I have a feeling we might get some Oikawa comments or maybe some Suki comments arguing for their place on the hierarchy here. But I'm curious to know where you guys would lie with some of the characters that we see in season 1. It's really cool because they're all fantastic characters in their own right, so it's really just how the wind blows that one day. So
yeah.
curious to know about it. Also, hit us up on AoA Reacts. The link is in the description down below, so you can catch all of our Haikyuu live reactions. We will be covering the show in its entirety. So can't wait for you guys to play on, to join the journey with us. It's been a lot of fun to do it, and I can't wait to get into it some more. So anyway, folks, thank you so much for watching. But until next time, we will catch you all on the flip. Peace.
Peace.
Ninjas are samurais, blaze of the kunais. Find me in the leaf of the cloud, screaming out Bankai. We just some ghouls though, who like seeing parts fly. They like what you saying, Goma got more through the storylines. I tested your neck from the start, my hunters gon' come for your heart. I promise you'll land in my boulevard, left them in one piece, no